Welcome, witches, wizards, and muggles alike, to another enchanting episode of Magical Tales from the Slytherin Common Room, bringing your favorite Harry Potter fanfiction to audio format. So sit back, relax, and Accio headphones, and let the magic begin.
Apostasy by Deydralinne, Chapter 51, Hogwarts. Ready? She gave the man before her an appraising look. Tom was dressed in an all-black fitted suit today, and in just a few minutes he would be required to go and make a speech, and ceremoniously cut the ribbon to the reopening of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The press had been having a field day about it for the last week, making a lot of speculations about staffing, curriculum, whether or not they would follow the plan that had been provided, and what it would mean for the students who had not been able to attend over the last 7 years. "This is not what I had imagined I would be doing with my time when you approached me, Hermione," Tom sighed. The reform to his public reputation had not been an easy transition for him. He still had the natural inclination to just kill whoever argued with him, and the order to refrain had not been an easy one for him to follow. Hermione reached out and straightened his tie. "I know," she agreed solemnly, "but I, for one, am proud of you, Tom Riddle. You have exceeded my expectations and followed every direction I have given you flawlessly. They're eating out of your hand now, and very soon we can move on to the next stage. It won't be long." She patted his tie down and gave a nod of approval. "There. Perfect." She smiled, meeting his piercing gaze. "I believe it is you who has exceeded expectations here. Best not keep them waiting." Tom straightened his shoulders and took a deep breath before ducking from the room and into the courtyard where the residents of Hogsmeade and a few patrons who had made the journey, and a series of journalists were waiting. Hermione waited a minute and followed him out, avoiding the main stage and slipping into the shade of a tree next to the podium that had been erected for Tom's speech. "Everything okay?" Draco asked in a hushed voice as she approached the group. Hermione raised an eyebrow in agreement. "Yep, he's frustrated, but we're good." Draco frowned in confusion and slipped into her mind, the safer alternative than discussing it out loud. She let him in, and he analyzed the conversation that Hermione had had with the minister, humming his understanding and slipping from her mind again. "The gala next week will cheer him up, and if not, then we can explore alternative means to keep him satisfied." "That sounds like you plan to pimp him out," Ginny muttered beneath her breath as she strolled up behind them. "That's not a thought I want to think about, nor is it what I meant," Draco scowled in disgust. Tom approached the podium, and a flash of lights from the reporters' cameras blurred her vision with their bright light. His voice portrayed a man of confidence and charm as he smiled widely for the crowd. "Way less creepy now that he has a proper face," Draco mumbled, and Hermione swallowed the chuckle that threatened to surface. "Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed media. Today we stand on hallowed grounds. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry stood for centuries as a pillar in our society, leading our ancestors to greatness, which is why, after 7 long years of darkness and strife, it is with immense pride and profound joy that we have gathered here today to celebrate. The corridors and the classroom of this school were once filled with the promise of our futures tomorrow." Hermione watched the faces of the crowd, who seemed to be hanging on his every word. Many, she was sure, had been sure they would never see these doors reopen. The war we are leaving behind us cast us too far into the shadows of uncertainty and fear. And yet, even in the darkest of times, when the Order rebels had us on the back foot, hope never abandoned us. We have rebuilt these walls with the same tenacity and spirit that carried us all through those dark times. The scars of war may remain, but I say to you, wear them with pride, as they are a testament to the resilience of our people. For today, we are not merely here to reopen a school, but to reignite a flame that represents the courage, loyalty, ambition, and pursuit of knowledge found in the foundations of our people and in this school's students." Murmurs of support and agreement flowed over the crowd in a wave, another round of flashing cameras chasing it. Hermione smiled, a pleased smile. The anxiety over how well today would be received melted away. "You did a good job with that speech," Blaise leaned in to whisper in her ear. "It is a place where we can celebrate our differences, and the magic within each and every one of us is honed and respected. I won't take up any more of your time. I know everyone is excited to see for themselves the restoration that has taken place, but I will leave you with this. Hogwarts is not just reopening, It is rising like a phoenix from the ashes, stronger and more vibrant than before. Together, we will take this horrific part of our history and transform it into a legacy of greatness. One that says we will not be defeated. May the magic within you light the path forward towards a better future. Thank you. And finally, may I say, welcome back to Hogwarts. An eruption of applause filled the courtyard and echoed up the stone walls. That was cheeky. Blaise raised an eyebrow at her. Hermione smirked smugly. I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about. It had been an argument that had only taken some convincing, the claiming of the Phoenix in the wake of his new government. Her reasoning was simple. By stripping the order of its symbol, it shifted some of the narrative of good back to them. This moment would go down in history, and she hoped that quote would be among them, blurring the lines between what was once the order and the actions of the Death Eaters. Combined with the terrorist label that had been listed beside the order and the positive image that Tom was building, had forever changed their perception. At least that was the hope. Shall we look around? Draco suggested casually. Ugh, Ginny scoffed. Didn't you spend enough time in this hellhole? Draco shrugged. I don't think I got the chance to truly appreciate it while I was here. I'll come with you, Hermione smiled. That's what she said, Theo mumbled under his breath before tilting his head and looking at the castle. Do we know who the new headmaster is? She shook her head. No, I left it entirely up to the magical education department. It's odd that they haven't announced it though, right? Ginny asked as the group turned and slowly began to wander back inside. Maybe they haven't filled the position yet, Blaise theorized. Wanted, headmaster for magical boarding school. Position vacant due to the death of previous two, as well as the deputy headmistress and a multitude of teachers. Will need to be experienced as the school has just reopened after 7 years of being a war-stricken wasteland, as it was used as a battlefield where a lot of people died. See aforementioned headmaster. You will be required to deal with several years' worth of students who had limited to no education and will likely be distrustful of staff and your authority, as the last facility was run by an insane, curse-happy psychopaths. Theo rattled off with a grin. I don't know what you mean. It sounds like a great position. Blaise shrugged with a snicker. Yeah, well, let's hope whoever the new headmaster is doesn't think it's a good idea to store 3-headed dogs in corridors or think it appropriate to let the school remain open should another basilisk start roaming the halls. Hermione drawled as they strolled through the great entrance. I assure you, I will not, a stern voice sounded behind them. Hermione and Ginny spun at the familiar voice. The tall, thin woman with curls as wild as her sisters, though better contained, stood before them. Andromeda, Hermione gasped. You're the new headmistress? I am. The witch eyed each of them individually with suspicion. The last she had seen of Andromeda was the night after the Battle of Hogwarts, where she had gathered up her belongings and fled with her grandson Teddy, claiming that she wanted nothing to do with the bloody war. It had taken everything from her, and she would not let it take Teddy too. Minerva had pleaded with her to think of the order, and Andy had made up her mind, order be damned. Now she stood tall before them, looking down her nose ever so slightly at their group, and no doubt judging each of them. Oh, well, that's great, Hermione smiled awkwardly, sensing the tension from the older witch. I didn't realize you were... Let me make myself clear, Hermione. I am not sure what has gone on since I left. Her eyes roaming over to Draco and the other branded Death Eaters. But I have no interest in whatever game you are playing at. My interest is in shielding yet another generation from becoming mindless puppets. Andromeda lowered her voice to a hiss as she stepped closer to Hermione. Mindless puppets, Ginny snapped beside her. I will not stand by and let it happen again with Teddy's generation. Do you understand me? The underlying threat in Andromeda's voice did not go unnoticed by Hermione, who stared back at her in mild annoyance. If you will remember correctly, Andromeda, it was not my generation who started this war. I want nothing more than for it to be over. This isn't some nefarious plot to brainwash children. We are simply trying to rebuild society. I don't believe you. Andromeda hissed through gritted teeth. Watch yourself, Auntie, Draco warned quietly. But Andromeda ignored him. No one asked you to, Hermione snarled back. But before you start flinging around accusations that you know nothing about, it might interest you to know that I am trying to make this world a better place, trying to end the bloody war. It's all good and well for you. You left. You ran away. And I understand why, okay? I do. But you don't get to come in here now and start criticizing me for staying and finding a way out of the hellhole that had become our country. Hermione glared back at the woman in annoyance. Perhaps you should have done your research before coming back. The Order has been the one keeping this war going far longer than what was necessary. I'm just fulfilling a prophecy. Pleasure to see you again. Hermione turned and stalked away from the witch. It wasn't much of a pleasure, truth be told, but Hermione understood why Andy was behaving the way she was. She had left the country with little to no trust in anyone from either side. She had trusted the Order to keep her husband safe, and he had been hunted down. She trusted the Order to keep her daughter safe, and she had died hand in hand with Remus. Her friends had all died or been driven to insanity, and all she had left was Teddy. But it didn't mean Hermione needed to stand around and listen to her bullshit threats. As if she wouldn't be able to kill Andromeda in the blink of an eye if she wanted to. But 3 dead former headmasters killed while on the job might be a bit much for applicants to overlook. The others jogged to catch up to her. It almost felt too easy to roam the halls again. The occasional ghost would pass by her, raving about how much better the castle was now that it was repaired. 1 or 2 she recognized as people who had lost their lives at the battle. Do you think they will hire old Professor Binns as History of Magic teacher again? Ginny groaned out loud. I would say he would be rather offended if they didn't, given that the whole reason he didn't pass on was because he wasn't done teaching. Besides, it's a professor they don't need to pay, which, right now, isn't a bad thing considering how much money has gone into repairing the community and business loans and whatnot. Draco answered, looking around the halls. Hermione was sure the school felt so much larger the last time she had been here. She wasn't any taller now than she had been then, but she felt bigger somehow. Before, the war had been predominantly fought within these walls for her. She had been a different sort of young than she was now, a more innocent and naive version of herself that still believed in the good triumphing over evil. Now she understood that there was no such thing, only those with power and those with the desire to take it. That version of Hermione would never have even considered ending a life, but that version of her was dead, rightfully so. When we were here the other week overseeing the building repairs, I kept waiting to see Fred. I imagined he would have been here floating around, causing chaos with Peeves, getting into all sorts of mischief. But I can't even find Peeves. Ginny opened the doors to the Great Hall, and it was like stepping back in time. The gaping hole that had been in the wall on one side of the room was solid once more, and the ceiling overhead glistened with the same enchantments it always had. Tables and benches had been righted, and though empty, you never would be able to tell that there had once been over 100 dead bodies lining in rows. Now they all just stood there in the middle of the hall, looking at it as though it had never happened. In a few weeks, a train full of students would be traveling here for a catch-up year, and come September, the school would be operational as normal. Feels strange, doesn't it? Ginny said. To think this once felt like home. I don't know. I know what home feels like now. And this wasn't it. Hermione offered her a smile.